we already have everything ready from the side of the bot. So this searchable collection in the main VM could already bind over to a list view that we can create right here in the content page, the main page. And it will already contain the messages and whether this is an incoming or an outgoing text. So we're pretty much ready to start displaying things right here in the main page. All we will really have to do is, inside of this grid and before the stack layout, or well, it doesn't necessarily have to be before the stack layout, we just have to make sure that when we define a list view, we set its grid.row to be the first row. And we see immediately this list view with these cell separators being displayed, and it is right there right away. In fact, I could go ahead and make some of the quick changes that I would like to have in this list view. For example, set that the row height is going to be uneven. So I will set has uneven rows to true. Of course, this means that some rows may be taller than others. And this happens in every single chat. There are some messages that have more text, so the bubbles have to be taller. I could also set the separator visibility to be none, so I don't really have separators inside of my list view. And notice that immediately the separators are gone. We don't see any lines, any divisions between cells right here in the list view, which is not something that you see on a chat. So our list view starts to be a little bit more ready to display these elements. Now, what is going to be interesting here is not really using a list view. We have used list views a lot. I hope that not just the list view that you have used in this course, but that you were familiar already with the uses of list view with Xamarin Forms or even other platforms. Maybe you have used lists on WPF or something like that. So what I want to focus on in this lecture is how is it that you're going to be able to tell the list view that there are two possibilities, that it could either create a bubble to the right when the message is not incoming, or to the left when it is. And so for this, what I want to do is create a couple of custom cells. Now, these are not going to be simply, of course, view cells, so we can create anything. I actually want a couple of different user controls, if I may call them that the list view is eventually going to decide to use. So what I will do is in the view, create first and foremost a new folder. And this new folder is going to be called user controls. Now, these may not actually be user controls. I am just used to this because I come from developing for Windows, where you can actually have a user control that is, just your own definition of certain controls. Maybe you can define your own label or your own button. Well, in this case, we are going to be defining our own view cells. And so inside of this folder, I am going to create a new, it's going to be the content page template, but this is not going to be a content page. Let me define this as the incoming view cell. And the first thing that I want to do is change the type of the incoming view cell. This is not going to be a content page. This is going to be a view cell. So I change the class from which incoming view cell inherits. And I have to do it both on the CS file and, of course, on the XAML file, I have to change the definition. So this, again, is not going to be a content page. This is going to be a view cell. Now, what I want you to realize in here is that this view cell is eventually simply going to be one of the cells that this list view is going to be displaying. And if this list view, in fact, let me go ahead and do that right away. The list view is going to have an item source binding to the messages property that we have in the main VM. So just like the entry is binding to the message and the button is binding to the send command that we already have, these two properties, well, the messages property, which is an observable collection, is going to be the item source for this list view, which means that each and every one of the cells inside of this list view will receive a chat message. So this class that we have over here, an ID, a text, and an is incoming. So in the incoming view cell, what I will have, and let me first define a frame. So this has some rounded corners, but what this will have, the frame, is going to be a label that will have to display the text from chat message. So we can actually define that the text is going to be binding to text, which is the name of the property that we want to display here. Now, this label, the frame actually is going to have a background color. Let me make this sort of blue. I have here a hexadecimal value that is going to be a sort of a dark blue color. So the text should probably have a text color, the label should have a text color of white. So the color is easily distinguishable from the background. And for now, this is going to be enough. The basic thing in here is to know that we're already binding. We don't really know right now, at least in the context of this view cell, of this file alone, we don't know to what is this going to be binding. There is no source, there is no binding context, but we know that eventually this view cell will be one of the cells displayed by this list view, which we already know has a binding to the messages. So we know that that cell is eventually going to have a context, a binding context of a chat message. So we know that we can bind to a text property. Now let me go ahead and create the outgoing. Actually, I made a mistake in here. If this is going to be the incoming, this is not going to be blue, this is going to be some sort of gray. So just let me change the background color, which means that the text color should probably be black. And the outgoing view cell, let me create a new file inside of user controls. This is going to be a content page. This is going to be the outgoing view cell. And this one is, again, going to be inheriting from view cell, not from content page. And we have to change this in the CS file and in the SAML file. And this is basically going to be the exact same thing, except the background color is going to be that blue and the text color is going to be white. Again, this is going to have a text binding to the text of the chat message that will eventually be the binding context for each cell. And of course, like I said, this has to be a view cell, not a content page. And so we already have these two different view cells, each and every one with a slightly different style. And in the main page, we already have this list view that has an item source already binding. We are already setting that it has uneven rows, that it has no separator. It really is only missing the item template, but the item template cannot be what we have been used to or what we have done